here so that I can mispronounce them properly. We've got a broad spectrum. Now it becomes more interactive, so we've had all the passive teaching and learning stuff, the lectures, which you'll retain approximately 5 to 10% of in a week, and less than that in a month. So you can forget what you've heard up to now. Now's the time to become active, begin to ask questions. Ian is going to assist us by chairing the panel. We have a very exciting bunch of people. We have Liam Fellon and Bonnie McBain from the University of Newcastle, if you could join us. Darryl D'Souza and Astrid Bowers from RMIT University. Helen Nald and Eugene Detroit from Griffith. And Lawrence Orlando and Chris Ryan from Monash, all of whom have been a part of this PATS experience. So now the opportunity is here for those of you who've been listening who may not have been so heavily involved in the whole PATS activity base, to ask questions, to offer reflections, and generally engage with the panel participants. And with that said, I think I'll hand over to Ian, who can become MC for at least half an hour. So welcome, Ian.
Thanks very much, Arnold. My name is Ian Solomonides. I'm the Director of the Learning and Teaching Centre at Macquarie University. And I also have the great honour of being the external evaluator on Angela's fellowship. An opportunity I jumped at because I've been playing around with peer observation and review in various formats throughout my career. And I was reflecting on a few things that were said earlier, particularly about the kind of conversations, enabling conversations about teaching, learning and student engagement. And I think that's one of the, if there's one thing that we could do, I think, to improve our practice, it would be about encouraging that kind of activity. One of the luxuries of sitting metaphorically at the centre of the university is enabling and brokering those kinds of conversations and those kinds of connections. So it was interesting to see Wenger and Rav cited in Angela's presentation there, to talk about that kind of brokerage. Before we start, and I get into our colleagues here on the panel, I'm conscious we're running behind time, but the truck is late with the lunch anyway. Is that correct? All right, so it's going to buy us a little bit more time. Before we do start, 2008 to 2013, 14, I think we should give Angela a round of applause for tenacity. It seems to me that the kind of things that we're talking about here, in much of the work we do, is about legitimacy and value. And that legitimacy and value can be given to you, often positionally, but it's best when it's earned. And I think Angela and the scheme have earned this over that period of time, judging by the evidence that they put forward. Anyway, enough of that, and let's introduce our panel. You've already heard who they are, but I'm going to get them just to say a little bit about where they're from and why they're involved in this scheme. Bonnie.
Hi, my name is Bonnie McBain. I'm from the University of Newcastle. I was involved in this scheme as a new teaching academic. I'd done quite a bit of research but had never taught before. So good. And I inherited an online course from my colleague Liam here, who is my mentor. So the course that I inherited had really great feedback from students, and it had content which was really engaging, and it's a master's level course. So I suppose my aim for this course is to be able to continue the quality despite the fact that I have very little experience both in teaching and in an online environment. So that was my motivation for being involved in this, and we'll talk more about what came out of that.
Right.
Thanks, Bonnie. My background's in environmental studies. The last 2 years I've been focused on online teaching at postgraduate level. So at Newcastle we have around 300 courses offered each year at postgraduate level and in online study mode. And so my focus is on working with folks right across the uni, all 5 faculties that we have, on practices and initiatives and so on that are about ensuring that they're doing really good, great work in that space. Can I just say that this is Bonnie's 2nd year of teaching, and this year she won the Online Teacher of the Year award, which is an award that is nominated by students. So Bonnie's been doing a fantastic job, and that's testament to her commitment to her teaching, but it's also a little bit of a story about that. So.
Hello, my name is Astrid Bowers. I'm from Computer Science and IT at RMIT, and working with Darryl, who will introduce himself in a minute. We did a mentor relationship participation in PATS. I have come from industry and worked over 25 years in industry as project manager through various roles, and came to the university to set up a master's project course, but then started teaching as well. And the group that I taught, the topic was, the subject was engineering software projects, which is an enormous topic. And the students I was teaching were from 2nd year onward, undergraduate to final semester postgraduate students. So a huge array, and that in itself was quite a challenge. So it was, I was involved in the program to see what I was doing basically, to get feedback over the thing.
Hi, my name is Darryl D'Souza from the same school as Astrid, Computer Science and IT at RMIT. I've been there for 30 years plus, so I must like something about RMIT, or teaching. I think it's teaching, and I became involved in teaching, in a scholarly way in 2005 when I started setting up a mentoring scheme for students, because in my discipline, as anyone knows who is from computer science, programming is what I consider the learning bottleneck. You fail programming and you're done for the rest of your career in the school almost. And that's national and international, it's not just in my school. So I became interested in the scholarly way in programming and started to teach first years. And I thought, well, I'm looking at students from a student perspective, but I've never actually evaluated myself or what I should do. Am I doing the right things? Can I do this in a more structured way? Can I find out more about teaching? And I think that's where PATS did help. I happened to know Ange, of course, which was fortunate. We worked on other projects. And so I became familiar with the PATS project and decided to have a go, and surprisingly found it quite straightforward and simple to use, yet it provided me with ideas for the future in how I might evaluate teaching better. And we can talk about what we did later, I guess. Thank you. Helen.
I'm Helen Lorg. I'm from University Health. I teach into first year foundation year, which is a very large cohort. I think we had 850 students last year. And we teach in anatomy and physiology. So Joss and I actually have offices next door to each other, and we teach the same cohort. And yet, even though I've been interested in knowing what the curriculum that he covers and having discussions about it in the corridor, I think what PACES did, or we call it PACES at GU, gave us that time to actually have a coffee and talk about it and actually go into it. I went into Joss's course and observed the teaching and the curriculum, and I thought it was a fabulous opportunity to be able to get, the coffee is important actually, because even though we're quite, we live next door, we actually, our offices are there, but we didn't actually engage in deep reflective conversations about courses. So I actually learned a lot from it as well, and so I thought it was really good.
So I'm Josh Detroit. As Helen said, we teach at Prof University, large foundation year classes. The challenge with our large classes, but also very diverse OP scores. So we have students that are OP1s and OP17s. Trying to sort of juggle the curriculum to suit all those students is quite a challenge. Being evaluated or use student evaluation of teaching in courses for 13 years taken all that information on board and adjusted my teaching and the course content, but never actually had an opportunity where I could get peer assessment of what was going on. And the PACES program was announced on email, and I thought it would be a good opportunity to get someone that's experienced and that's on the same side of the desk as myself to have a look at what I'm doing, what I could improve on, and give me some feedback. So that's the main reason I got involved, is I'd given the students an opportunity to give me some feedback, but I never actually got peer input. And I found this was an ideal opportunity to get that feedback as well.
Thanks, Chris. Chris?
Thank you. My name is Chris Ryan. I'm from here at Monash University in the Faculty of Engineering. I've actually been involved since 2010, so quite some time now. And I got involved because my head of department at the time said, "Great, you're reining it in engineering," which for the was perhaps not as difficult as it sounds, with your teaching. We want you to help us. Very fortunately, I got in contact with Angela, and so we get started. And I've been involved, always focusing on those staff who are really challenging and are finding their career path at that point really challenging. So we have unit evaluations from 1 to 5 here at Monash. I think the lowest that I've gone to help an academic is where they were getting 1.75. And they were at the end of their career basically, they decided that they were going to do something else entirely. We managed to turn that around. They got 4 on the next time, and their career was saved, and it's very, very exciting. I've also had academics who have looked at me in the eye and said, "I'm afraid to teach. I'm afraid to be in a room with 200 students in a darkened room for what they are going to think of me as an individual." And once again, we got them from 2 to 4, which was very, very nice. So there's that aspect. I would really love to be able to see where we can get academics, where they started from is very important to me, so that we can actually see that journey. And I think their story, in some ways, is almost more important than mine. But to be able to share that with them has been a great deal.
Thanks. Laura?
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. I'm Laurence Orlando. I work in the Faculty of Pharmaceutical Science, and I've been working in industry for 15 years before that. And I joined only 4 years ago, so I became a teacher 4 years ago, basically. And I found it incredibly difficult to convey my message that I knew inside out in a digestible form to the students. And the work that I did to try to put this entire knowledge into a digestible form actually made me learn more than the students. And I just thought that the students deserved to do this actual work that I did, where I learned a lot of things themselves. And so I thought about them writing a textbook, but I just thought that it was totally out of reach. And until I attended one of the seminars here, and Adam, you just talked about Peter Wagstaff, who was in the room, and who actually did write a book with his students. And I just thought, oh, okay, it's possible. And then I talked to Angela, and there was the PATS thing, and I just grabbed Peter Wagstaff and just, "You are going to be my mentor. And you are going to help me avoid all the pitfalls that you probably went through, and that I will not go through myself." So thank you very much in advance. And we managed to get to make the students write this book. So he did it with postgraduate physical students, and we transferred and adapted it to undergraduate science students. So, and it was a real success. We did RSD as well, so we put plenty of different things together in this project, and we managed to get the students write the book that I have here. And in the second semester, this was the first semester this year, and I continue being on PATS, and I will probably be on PATS forever. I was actually kind of more mentoring this time to put together some research skill development and team-based learning together in my unit and in my colleagues' unit. And we worked really closely together to put that in place. And it's really great because I think I took PATS, all the units that were involved in the 2 PATS that I did were only in green or purple. So it was not about putting them up because we needed to, it was just taking risks. And taking risks in a safe environment where we have someone else who is with us to share, our distress and things that don't work, and also share the things that work.
Great, thank you. So a variety of motivations, reasons, experiences of being involved in this scheme. I'd like to open it up now to some questions from the floor. So if anybody's like to ask our panel a question about the reasons being involved or their experiences, I'd be delighted to do it. Okay.
So Ian's flanked me in the audience to ask the first question, so you all start to ask questions now. So we heard a comment earlier from one of the PATS reflectors that was talking about the blind leading the blind. I just wondered from the panel's perspective, it sounds like you didn't experience the blind leading the blind at all. You experienced something else. I'd just like to hear your reflections on that.
The blind leading the blind.
Blind, I don't think we were, none of us were blind, not particularly leading each other. I think we were just conversing in a way that we hadn't previously and looking at things from very different perspectives. Errol was teaching first year programming course, and first year students, as has been said before, there were tuition rates, all of those things they have to be very mindful of. I was teaching a diverse range of students in a course that I've always practiced but not taught in before. So it was a new teaching experience for me. In that respect, I wasn't blind, I guess. The blind leading the blind. Yes, it was not that. It was a matter of understanding each other's perspectives. I had never understood before, and we're in the same computer science and IT, and programming, I've never programmed in my life. So to see how coding is taught to first year students in a very large audience compared to what I was teaching, which was very theoretical but for practical outcomes also, to understand the diversity of what's involved in these degrees that we have, and to experience as an audience participant in a course, I think is really, really important, because otherwise you don't understand just how diverse the programs are that we have, and what the learning curves that students go through, and how very different those learning curves are.
Similar experience for everybody?
If I could just jump in. Yeah, look, that could be a possibility, I think, that you end up in a scenario like that. But that certainly wasn't the experience that Bonnie and I had as a pair, and also in my role as coordinating some other folks also being involved in the program. I think if you're engaging with the program genuinely, then that would be an unlikely outcome. If this was community development, we might call it asset-based community development. So it's in no way framed as a remedial program. In fact, we have people who are doing good things in their teaching, and if something's falling down somewhere, well, that doesn't mean they're a complete write-off. Some things will be working, so let's see if we can build on that. I would say probably the insurance clause to prevent that happening is ensuring that the program is properly supported, so that if you have people in pairs and there is a possibility of that happening, that they're properly supported by their PATS coordinator or however that's happening institutionally.
So I was mentee, and I think when you commit yourself to the scheme and you make a decision to get additional help, I think we were in a position where Steve basically gave us the opportunity to go and find a mentor ourselves. We had a list which we could access as well. And I think Griffith University fortunately has a whole lot of awards, teaching awards, which recognise good teachers. So it's very easy to identify the sort of candidates that you can go and approach as mentors. And I think when you commit yourself to the scheme, it's up to the mentee to make sure that they identify a person that they have a lot of confidence in and that they believe would make a positive contribution to their whole PACES experience.
Thank you.
I'd just like to reiterate the comment about making a small change can make a huge change from the student perspective. When you start off with an academic who's really been struggling, they sit there and think that everything should be just thrown out, let's start again. And the first conversation I have is that that's wrong. And to focus dispassionately on the student comments and be able to get that remove all the passion from the student comments, and really then focus on where you're going to get the biggest bang for your buck for the least amount of effort, whilst keeping you very engaged in the process of teaching yourself and creating that new teaching material as well, even if it's just the delivery that's changing. So it's not the blind leading the blind, because that particular person who might be struggling so much already knows so much. Yeah, that's the key point. And then there's certainly been many occasions where I've learnt from the person that I'm helping, got different ideas from them and said, oh wow, why aren't I doing this? And so that doesn't just help me, that then suddenly helps all the other people that I've been helping as well. So it's just a marvellous thing there. Yes, I don't think it's blind leading the blind.
Thank you. A question? Can you identify yourself, please?
Yes, I'm Joy Whitten from Macquarie University. Did all of your contexts involve two people, like a mentor and a mentee, or did the collegiateness ever extend to perhaps like even two at once or some other combinations? Can you just clarify? Because I'm interested in those that other, I suppose, building of the community that's located in faculties, and maybe more than one might do that well.
No, we had a mentor-mentor relationship, so neither of us were mentees. And I think that's because we had known each other for 10 years, I think. Neither of us had grave problems with teaching. We were both interested in teaching. I think going back to Arnold's point about the blind leading the blind, I see it as a layered thing. I mean, it'd be interesting to have two people on an equal level who've just started their teaching careers engaged in PATS, mentoring each other. That would probably be the blind leading the blind. In our case, the mentor relationship was about structured communication, I think, about our teaching. And that's what PATS offered me, at least. But the mentor relationship to us worked a lot better in our context, particularly with our very disparate courses.
Yes, just on a practicality level, just having two people involved made it very easy. I mean, even though Joss and I were in the same level, same floor and everything, just connecting. Have you got time today, tomorrow, whatever? So I think the first thing when Joss said, "Oh, do you want to be involved in this with me?" I thought, work. But just having it turned out not to be very onerous at all. Actually, it's quite enjoyable, and just having that structured conversations, as you say. But managing two people is okay. I think I don't know, having another person might.
So one of the two of the units that I've helped out with had two people teaching in that unit. And the only thing that I'm going to say to that is it certainly adds a lot of complexity with the conversations that you have whilst you're identifying with each of them where some of the pitfalls have been. And it becomes far more cagey and more difficult to have that conversation when there's three people rather than two.
That's fine.
We did have a meeting with at the end of the PATS program with all of the people in Newcastle involved in the PATS experience. And to be honest, it was just as inspiring as going through the PATS process itself, because we all learned so much. It was only maybe an hour or two, but we learned so much about each other's experience, and we were so inspired about how motivated other people were. And at the end of it, we were like, damn, I wish we had a video of this so we can give it to management, because it was just so lovely. Yeah.
Thank you. Another question, please.
Hi, Theo from Monash University. In theory, there should be some existing mechanisms within universities, within schools, etc., to do some of the things that PATS is talking about. So education committees review and suggest course improvements, people provide reports back. Often you get units with a unit coordinator and several lecturers teaching there, so potentially you've got a team who are going to work together and help each other out. So I'm interested from the panel participants how much they felt that PATS, in their experience, built on those mechanisms in where they were working, or those mechanisms were completely broken and didn't exist or weren't working, and PATS introduced all those things.
So I reckon there's two bits of genius to the PATS framework. The first is that it fosters collegiality between folks who are teaching, and that's something that may or may not have happened in the past in the tea room and so on. But where I work and where lots of people I know work, it seems like the place is kind of set up to mitigate against that and make that hard. So that's the first bit of genius right there. The second is that it turns that collegiality into an accounting unit, an accountable unit. And so to the extent that we all love neoliberalism and enjoy living in a neoliberal world, it's important that these things can be accounted for if they're going to get a run. As to how that plays out in whichever context it might be, any of the ones that we're from here or anyone else who chooses to take it up, that's really a decision, I think, a call for people who are in that location to make about what is the space in which they have there to work something up along these lines.
Thoughts? Anybody else?
I guess my concern with the way that our faculty looks at it and has done for many years is that it's a process really for committees in a sense. You have to fill in your paperwork. This unit was doing very poorly. How are you going to improve it? There's a hard deadline and no conversation between when that piece of paper has been put forward and when a change to the unit is going to take place. The one thing that we got out of PATS that Angela really put together very nicely was this constant conversation that was going to take place with different parts taking place, different parts of that conversation taking place throughout the semester. And so that then, even if someone was a little bit reluctant at the start, it gave them the opportunity to say, well, by about now we should be talking about this, so why don't we have that coffee, talk about this particular aspect of the program, which, frankly, the piece of paper on how you're going to improve didn't address at all.
Michelle, you have a question?
Sorry, Michelle speaking from Sydney Uni. Thank you. We have a sort of a peer conversation project in the business faculty, and what's happened is that issues that relate to university level, at a discipline school level, at a program level, often emerge out of those conversations. So the issues are not about necessarily the unit or subject design or the person's actually teaching. And I'm just wondering if there's a mechanism any of you have to actually make sure that those issues are identified and picked up on. Because I think often the staff feel a bit disempowered that issues that are outside their control may not be addressed.
Who's going to tackle that one?
Hi, thanks. I'm not sure if this is going to answer that question, but in my school we have a teaching committee where those sorts of issues are meant to be raised. But I don't think there's the time or the energy with it at the school level to do that. So most of us who are interested in teaching and learning and improvement will look outside of the school context. That's speaking for my school. I don't want to speak about other schools that are RMIT. And we do have good support structures at the college level, college being faculty at RMIT. So we've got an academic development group, and they're becoming more and more active. Indeed, we've got Andrea Chester sitting there in the audience who leads a similar or a peer partnership scheme in the college itself. But reflective matters about teaching, I'd say, are not readily supported in the school. So I don't feel I have that space to carry out those conversations at the local level.
If I could just add to that, I'd like to say that I think it would be really a good idea to make this part of the program for everyone who teaches. But because this gives you a place in which to speak openly and honestly without any fear of reprisal or whatever. I think, as I said before, the conversation is the really important part, the reflective and the conversation. So I think it would be great if this were a part of everyone's activities. And as you said, it's not an onerous thing. It doesn't take a lot of time, but at least it gives you the ability to discuss, reflect, and receive information and feedback that might not otherwise be possible, not just from the students, but from someone else. So it's not about subject matter you're teaching, and I think that was quite interesting. Before someone said that this could be across disciplines, and it doesn't matter what the subject is that is being taught, it's the how the information is being imparted to the students and received by the students. And I learned some things, for example, I'm going on topic here, I do this all the time. I saw, for example, watching Daryl's course, the lecture and program, that there was one student there who was who couldn't hear. So there was an interpreter, two interpreters, and that's a challenge that I had never thought of before. Teaching someone programming who can't hear or speak, and asking, and this person was quite communicative in the questions that was being asked. So I think there are all these little things that you observe that you wouldn't otherwise be exposed to. So I answered that in a very long way.
Chris, you want to say something?
Just a really good point. In my faculty, we've had, I think, the reverse, where the executive has said to us that PATS takes up a lot of time. It takes up too much time for the staff. And the way that I've tackled that is I've looked at how those people that I've helped, the mentees, how their teaching has progressed in terms of the unit evaluations thereafter. And the thing is that they've all improved in that time, they've all started to enjoy their teaching progress. But then after I finished the intensive conversations with them, that improvement has remained. And that's something that I've then looked at the executive and said, well, yeah, sure, one intensive semester where we've really helped someone out. And not only have we got someone who has now improved in that aspect of their job, but also you've got someone who can then pass on that story to somebody else who's struggling with it. So I think that there's that.
Thank you. We'll have one more question. I think Sandra's got a question.
Sandra Wells from Charles Sturt University. I've been leading an international project funded by the Higher Education Academy called Promoting Teaching, which is about evidence and recognition of teaching and academic promotion. And part of that project quite clearly shows the need and the value of peer review in the promotion process. So congratulations to everyone here who's involved in this. It's a really important project. But my question is around, we've been hearing this morning about the value of the PATS process for people keeping their job and probation and improving their teaching at the low base. But we've also heard from Sue about use of Pebble Pad and e-portfolio and collection of evidence. So I'm wondering if people here on the panel, and maybe the speakers this morning, would like to reflect on any experience you've had taking the evidence from this process through into promotion, not probation, but promotion.
Interesting. Any experience? Daryl?
Definitely. I think that what we take for granted as teachers is that we just go in and teach, try to do the best, and we forget that there's a scholarly element to this. And for me, when I got into setting up a mentoring scheme, that was the breaking point for me, that it allowed me to get into scholarly activity. Similarly with the PATS scheme that we've just completed, we've actually now submitted a paper. So, you know, it's certainly turned my thinking into wanting to discuss my experiences or our experiences with the rest of the teaching research community. So it's transformed things for me in that sense. Yeah.
Okay.
This might be a slightly broader take than what you're thinking about specifically, but if we reframed it slightly and thought about what are benefits that come through the PATS scheme that are outside of teaching particularly, then there's, I think, quite a few things that we could point out. One is Bonnie and I working up an OLT grant proposal that just came through. And that's something that we might have done anyway because we're colleagues and so on, but I think the PATS process was helpful for that. We've also got a community of interest in online teaching, learning and research at Newcastle Uni. We've spun a writing circle off of that on the scholarship of online teaching and learning. And again, folks who've been through the PATS scheme are part of that. They're not the only people that are there, but they are some of them. And I guess what I'm pointing to is the value of having those conversations and the way that those conversations can evolve in ways that are perhaps well beyond their starting points, their origin points. And, you know, that's magic and amazing.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, well, we might leave it there, and I'll wrap up. I think we've heard, I think Sandra said a range of ways in which PATS. A range of ways in which PATS has benefited our colleagues, and I would say their institutions. It seems to me that in the era of, we've heard about neoliberalism, but certainly the new professionalism, here is an opportunity for a vehicle that engages our colleagues in real conversations about the profession and professionalism. I think as we face a number of environmental challenges around things like programme cohesion and elevating the conversations from the unit course paper up to the programme level, I think again an ideal vehicle that enables that. But if you would please join me in thanking our I believe we have some usual tokens of appreciation, of our appreciation.